This week's podcast is presented by GK Calls, Migra Ammunition, Gibraltar Duck Hunters Association, Gibraltar Boatyard, Turtle Box, Gator Decoys, Hunt Proof, Cooler Guard, Pattern Pros, Hodag, and last but not least, I'd like to have a huge shout out to Brian Ellithorpe for all of the support that he does behind the scenes. Now let's get into today's episode. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Great Lakes Outdoors podcast. Before we get started, I just wanted to do another big shout out to Gibraltar Duck Hunters Association. And remember, they got the youth hunt coming up September, I think it's 18th. So we'll get more into that. But we got a special guest today, a returning guest. Me and Trav are lucky enough to be sitting here with Rich from Killer Food Plot. Rich, what's going on, man?
It's a busy time of year, enjoying the heat like always, and everybody else is. So
I don't know about enjoying so much, but
yeah, it's been pretty nasty out there. We get a break, we get the 90 degrees, and then it drops back down. And now this week's going to be a scorcher, so I'm not going to be doing a lot of work this week. Yeah, exactly.
I feel like we've been getting quite a bit of rain this spring, summer, though. No, I mean compared to the past 2 years, I'd say. Over here, anyway. I should say. Now, I don't know about over by you guys.
I mean, this spring I think we got a lot of rain this spring, and it was pretty consistent there for a while. But it doesn't seem like you're getting rain when you get this 5 days of 85, 90 degree weather. It's like you forget about all that rain you had 2 weeks ago. I mean, I think we've had a pretty fair amount of rain for the summer. I mean, heck, man, 4th of July, what they used to say, if, corn needs to be knee high by the 4th of July, and shoot, that stuff was 6 foot tall out here by my house by the 4th of July. So, I mean, that's an indicator that the growing season hasn't been too bad on people.
We were out there just talking about it, doing the blinds and doing some, trimming work and stuff. And me and my brother pulled up to a different field to freshen up some of our ropes out there. And he's like, knee high by the 4th of July, you might as well forget it, man. It's head high already. This corner's going to be 12 foot tall, 14 foot tall in some spots. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, I was on my way home yesterday, and we were driving by a cornfield, and I looked over and looked at my daughter. I said, it's already tasseling out. I couldn't believe it. There's tassels on the corn already. I go, that just seems super early. We'll see. I mean, and good for the farmers, right? Maybe it'll be good for us. That stuff it'll mature out and dry out, and maybe they get it off before October. I mean, we'll see.
That would be huge.
Yeah, because what was it? A couple of years ago? What was it? 3 years ago, I think it was. Maybe 4 years ago. They had we had all that rain in the fall time, and a lot of the farmers, I should say around here, couldn't get it off in time, and there was like a fungus that grew on the corn, and they didn't get like any money for any of it. I don't know if that happened over there by you guys, but it was all over here.
I remember that. They decided to tear their fields up out here. They knew it was wet, but they decided to tear the fields up, and a lot of them regretted that. They said they'd let it go again. And some of the guys that did let it go ended up getting too dry, and then we went to pick it. By the time they could get back out there, it was too dry, and then they'd go to pick it. It was falling off the cob before it was getting in the combine. So I do remember that. That was a bad year. They got a lot of rain and right at harvest time too.
Yeah,
it was beat off the stalks and onto the ground, and it was a bad season.
That it's good for us once they finally do get it down. I mean, I remember that year, it was hard for me to find any deer or even see any deer because the corn stayed up till February, I think it was for me. And of course, it was like 2 days after season, they got the corn down, and next thing you know, there's deer like all over right in front of my stand, of course. And I don't see them all year, and it was kind of a slap in the face over here.
Yeah, I do real good when the corn's up late. I've got my property's a pretty good travel corridor between the ag fields, and they cross the road to get to the river bottom over there on the other side of me. So I like to see the corn stand late, a couple of reasons, because if it's standing, the people I know that are trying to hunt that corn, you're not being as successful as they'd like to be, right? So that just gives us more opportunities to get that deer before they do. So,
that is true.
And they'll bed on the edge of them cornfields and in that swamp, and I own a lot of that swamp. So it benefits me on that.
I'd say so. That, I don't know. That's that for you for sure. I don't know if you remember last time we talked. For me, it's like mainly field, and I think Trav's kind of the same way too. As the corn's up, it's good for you, right, Trav?
Yeah, when the corn's up, I got deer all over the place because I'm on the corner of. I have a swamp in the back, so they're all in the swamp and bedding. But once the corn leaves, the deer disappear. So
Yeah.
I like corn staying up.
You guys need more food plots.
Yeah. Yes. Well, we might know a guy. That's the thing. The hardest part for me with the field aspect is like we do a few like smaller food plots along the side where like the crops don't grow, and we can't do anything about it. But once he comes in and harvests, the beans or the corn or whatever it may be that year, and comes in and tills it up afterwards, our food plots are usually right there in the tillage, so it doesn't, it helps in the beginning of the year, but you can't complain too much when you don't really pay for the property, or don't pay for the property at all, and can't get in their way at all.
Right.
Make it harder. That's the hardest part.
Yeah, if you could get in there and talk to the farmer and maybe late in season, especially like this year, if like I say, the growing season's been great. So maybe the beans and the corn will come off early. And if the farmer got them off there, talk to him, maybe he'd let you throw some oats out. I mean, I planted oats the third week of September and been very successful.
Really?
They grow, they grow in low temperatures. They love to grow in 60-degree temps. So when everything else is dead and gone, corn's gone, beans gone, everything in the woods is dying out, there's nothing green in there anymore, them oats are still growing. They're still growing at 55, 60 degrees. So when you're getting them cold temperatures later in the season, you've got something that is there. It's green. It's lush for them. It's full of carbs. It's full of sugar. Super attractive. Oats are very underestimated and misunderstood by a lot of people. They just think it's oats. Deer don't like it. Nope, they love it. I've got customers I plant oats and brassicas for, and they've literally said that they will walk through the brassicas in November, go to the oats, mill in there until almost dark, and then come back to the brassicas. Yeah.
How late would you plant? Like, what's the latest you've ever planted oats in a food plot?
The latest I've ever planted and been successful was the 19th of September. So, and that was an emergency kind of thing.
Yeah.
Guy had a food plot that didn't come in. It failed. It got hot, dried out. So I just went in there and I just drilled in a bunch of oats for him. I think it was like 4 acres of oats. I drilled that in, and by the time November came, he had 6 to 8 inches of growth on that. The deer were hammering it. So, and because it didn't seed out, it actually came back in the spring. It grained back out in the spring. So he had food source in the spring. I was pretty surprised at that.
Yeah, that's that. I mean, that's a perfect scenario in reality.
Yeah, because it's, we use that stuff for green manure, rye and oats. That's great soil builder. It's great for the soil, and the deer love that stuff. Once it seeds out, they don't really, they're done with it. You might as well sit there and wait for some birds to come in or something, By then, hopefully there's still some seeds on turkey season, because I need all the help I can get come turkey season.
I was in the same boat this year, man. It was a tough year for me. I don't know what it was, but it was we struggled this year, man. I don't know how your season ended up, but it was just it was tough.
I only hunted one weekend. My daughter and I got permission on a customer's property up north. Pretty sweet piece. Birds everywhere, right? So we're going into this like this is a slam dunk. We're both going to get birds this weekend. It's going to be great. And that Saturday we got up there, it was like 20 degrees and frosty, and they were on the neighboring property in an alfalfa field, and they were hung. They were not talking, and they were following like 3 or 4 hens, and there were 6 toms, and there were some nice toms in there, but they stayed in a group so tight it looked like a black ball walking across that field. I guess it's just because of the temps. I'm not an avid turkey hunter. It's like my 3rd or 4th year into it, so I'm very novice. So I'm not real sure what was going on with that, but they stayed in the sun. They didn't want to come across that field. I tried talking to them, and they didn't want to talk back. So we ended up getting nothing this year.
Thanks, man. It took me 3 attempts, just FYI, so don't feel too bad. Well, 2 attempts. I don't like to really talk about the 3rd attempt, but I got it done. That's all I got to say. I don't know. It was definitely a weird year. And I heard during turkey season, there was a biologist that came out. It was all over social media about hunting turkeys in their breeding time, and if that would change up like the population, like the numbers wise, or just talking about how do we expect the turkey numbers to go up if we're shooting them during their breeding time, and this, that, and the other, which I don't completely agree with, because if they're not gobbling, in my opinion, what kind of fun is turkey hunting in general? But I don't know. It's just a weird point that biologist made towards that time. We talked about 20-degree weather, and I'd rather hunt that than 90 degrees, I guess.
Yeah, my opinion is I don't know if like I say, I'm a novice, right? I'm not a turkey expert by any means, but when you're walking out there and you're finding all these nests that have been busted up and eggs laying all over the ground, I don't think shooting a time during breeding season's the issue because something had already been bred, right? So there's another reason them eggs got poached out of that nest, and it's not because
For
we're
sure.
hunting them.
I agree.
The coon
Well,
population is just overwhelming down here, around the swamps, and you got coyotes. We used to have tons of pheasants down here years ago. When I was a kid, you could walk out in this back field behind my house and kick up a half a dozen pheasants almost any given day. And I've heard one pheasant in the last 3 years out here. Didn't even see it, just heard it. So, I mean, it's hard.
I was talking to a guy about that too. I asked for permission on a piece that I've had for a little while, and I don't think we've ever even turkey hunted it before, but kind of one of those things where maybe they show up and maybe they don't, but if they do, I'm glad I have it at that time. And old timer, and he was talking about all the pheasants that they used to see out there as well. And I don't know if it's, I guess, what's your opinion? I don't know if it's like the tree lines that people are cutting out, or like the hedgerows that people are cutting out, or is it like the spray, you think? Or, I mean, do you think it's more of a predator thing?
I think it's a combination. I mean, you start taking them fence rows out. I hate that. That's disheartening to see that. I mean, I get it. Farmer wants 7 more rows of corn because that's their money, but the habitat that lives in those tree rows, so it may only be 10 foot wide, but it's amazing what'll live in that tree row, what can hide in there, and predation. Coons, they used to be under wrap because you could get $30-$40 for a hide off a good coon back in the day. And I don't even know if they buy coon hides anymore. So now the farmers are just paying people to kill, just to
Right.
go out there and take them out. Because I work a piece of property, and you see where the coons take more corn down than deer will all day long. And they pull that whole stalk down, they bite that cob, and then they pull another stalk down and they bite that cob. It's like, it's so wasteful. So, when they're not robbing nests, they're messing up everybody's bean fields and cornfields. So I think that has a lot to do with it. Nobody's trapping, nobody's running coons with their coon dogs anymore like they used to. I think that's a big part of it. But
it's a lost art.
again, I'm not.
I don't know anyone that's running coon. I mean, there's a bunch of old timers that I've talked to that do it, but no one up and coming is wanting to do it because there's no sense of it now with no money for the hides.
Yeah. I mean, unless you got a farmer that says, yeah, man, you can go run my woods and I'll give you $20 for every coon you kill because it keeps him out of his crops. There's really, other than, the passion to do it, but that kind of gets lost when even the people that had the passion don't really have a reason for it. A lot of those old timers did it for the money.
Yeah.
Back in the day, it was good money for them. They spent some time skinning them, and even muskrats, right? They used to trap muskrats all the time too. I don't see that like they used to do.
There's a guy in town growing up. I heard about the story that he would trap muskrats all the time. He bought a brand new truck, straight cash, just off muskrat pelts. I mean, it's funny that you guys bring that up too, because I was just talking to a guy yesterday about how just same thing. Nobody runs coons anymore. Nobody takes them. It's crazy how things have changed over time. But at the same time, like the I don't even know what it is, the trapping association or whatever they have, and like you don't even hear about that. Like, how are they not trying to push that as much as they can to get more people involved? I guess anymore, just for the fun of it, if anything.
Yeah, I it's kind of like a lost art. I mean, people just got out of it. I don't know. I don't know if it'll ever come back. To be honest with you, they'd have to make some pretty big changes in where they're buying the fur or however they're taking care of them. But it's too bad. I used to like to go out and coon hunt. When I was a kid, wasn't running dogs or anything. You just use a flashlight and a shotgun. But I haven't done that. I couldn't tell you the last time I'd done that. So yeah, a lot of things changing.
Well, again, like Trav said too, we appreciate you taking the time. We know that you're busy this time of year, and we talked about it the other day. Where why don't we get Rich back on? Just talk about fruit plots. It's that time of year. I know he's going to be busy, but hopefully we can get maybe an hour or whatever from him, and just kind of pick your brain about this time of year and kind of what people should be doing to the property, or what you're doing on day to day right now. What kind of work is getting done on some of these properties? I mean, are you guys planting already, or what's going on?
I'm trying not to plant right now. I will work some dirt. This is a perfect opportunity for me right now. If I have a piece of property that it may be fallow ground, it hasn't been worked in a very long time, or if even ever. Those are good ground you want to try and kill off, maybe even work and kill off again, right? You want to do it a couple of times. So like today, I had an opportunity on a piece of property like that, it's close, so I can go and kill it off. I can turn that dirt. I can let all the weeds grow in this heat that we're going to have in the next week, because that's when all these warm weather weeds want to just flourish. And I can let them
Right.
come out of the ground. I can go back and spray that again here in another week or two and then just drill through it. So those are the kind of things I'm doing. I won't probably really start planting again now until, well, logistically, if I'm around here, I won't start planting again until about the last week of July. I do have some jobs up north farther, and their growing season's a little shorter. So I can get up there, third week of July, end of the second week, and I can start working some dirt if I've sprayed it off already. But
I got you.
August is usually the last week of July through August is going to be ramp up time. So
How out of all their properties, how many have you planted like your food plots for like a springtime plot or like an early summer plot for those, those greens during the summertime? Do you do that much, or you kind of try to wait till that August, late July growing period?
Oh, no, I was planting in the middle of May, right? I
Yeah.
probably already put 40 acres in for spring, early summer plots. There's several properties that I manage, and I've been managing for 6-7 years, and if not longer. They go in, and I mean you're talking 24 acres, and I'll do that in the spring and go back and do it in the fall. We'll do a bunch of spring, just some I can terminate, whether it's buckwheat. I'll do my climatized mix. It's got beans in it. It's got the buckwheat in it. So all those things can be terminated later on, early fall, we'll say, in that August time in Nebraska. So you can just roll that stuff over and terminate it. If it's not full of weeds, roll it over, it breaks it, it's terminated. You don't have to spray it, and you can just drill right through it. So it's really convenient. But, I did a lot of beans and a lot of corn for people this year. I don't do that very often. But they wanted to get it done. So I did, and it worked out really well. I was a little nervous because my Genesis it doesn't drop it per seed, like a corn seeder or a bean seeder. They've got the discs in there, and it drops a seed every so many inches. The Genesis is a sweet piece of equipment, but it's a tumble drop. It drops it into the disc, and it, sows it into the ground. But it's clumpy. It's not beautiful. It's not like a farmer's field, but I like that anyway. The deer feel a little safer in there. It's not just perfect rows. So it turned out real well. I'm real happy with the way it's turning out. And it was knee high by 4th of July. So I got the ground in time. So
That's good then. That's good. I seen you were having a little bit of some issues, weren't you, with some equipment?
Oh yeah. I worked a new piece of property. It was over by Birch Run, and new pieces of property always get you a nice surprise. And I don't know, it's an old cattle farm, so I picked up some cattle fencing, and I didn't know it was there. I don't know how long it was on there, and I bet there's 300 yards of that stuff wrapped up in my tiller. So if you've ever tried cutting that stuff, the tensile strength on that cattle fence is it's phenomenal. You got to have the wire cutters, the real strong ones. So yeah, I ended up wrapping that all up and cut it off. Well, it was on there so long, it wore through the shaft of my tiller. So I couldn't use that tiller anymore. I was like 100 yards left, right? I had 100 yards of one pass left was all I had to do. And I found all this wire on there, got into the bearing, tore the bearing out of it. And so
God.
yeah, and I lost a bearing on my trailer that weekend too. So it was I ended up going back and forth to Birch Run a couple times to get trailer equipment, and it was a mess. We got her done though. Got it planted.
Every year, I guess something's got to happen like that. I feel like. I mean, there's something that's got to come up, or equipment failure. I mean, I don't want to. It sucks, obviously, but kind of part of the game, right? Or part of the name of the game, kind of thing. I mean,
It is. I mean, if it's not a transmission in the truck, it's a tractor problem or a tiller problem, or it's, last year I never had this happen before. So I got a reverse tiller, and it's coming the dirt, it's pushing the dirt at you. Never worked this field before. And I rolled this rock out of the ground that was so large that it wedged in between my tiller and my tractor, and I couldn't back over it, and I couldn't pull forward over it. So I had to disconnect my tiller, drive around, pick the tiller up with the bucket, chain it on there, get it out of the way, dig this rock out the rest of the way out of the ground, and it busted 3 rows of tines right out of the center of that tiller when that happened. And I was over by Deaford. I'm 2.5, 3 hours away, and so when you're laying out in the middle of this field at 9 o'clock at night, if you ever change tines on a tiller, it's not fun, even when it's on a hoist in the air. So when you're laying on the ground, this thing flipped over on its belly at 9 o'clock at night, you're not having a good time. So, but yeah, every year, man, it's something. I mean, I tell people, if you're not breaking, you're not farming. So,
well, the question: did you get stuck this year?
No, I didn't get stuck this year. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that was a good point. Because Trash started the other day.
I got stuck early this spring trying to till next to a swamp. Had to have a tow truck drive around the ag field around me and hook up a 200-yard rope to it and pull it out that way. So thankfully, my neighbor was kind enough to do that, because I was like, "Hey, I think you can pull with your Bobcat." We drove out there and looked at it, and he goes, "Yeah, we ain't pulling this out with the Bobcat." And so yeah, it was a little bit of a fiasco, but yeah, I learned from that, and I haven't been back out there since, because it's still, with all the rain and even with the dry spells, it's still so wet, and I do not want to get stuck again.
Yeah, that's a mess. I mean, what did you have a bucket on it? On your tractor?
I had a bucket on it. Yeah.
And you couldn't even bucket out, huh? You were stuck.
I had the tiller on the back. I pulled the tiller off. And of course, I had my kid with me too. So now my kid, every time I stop the tractor, he goes, "Dad's stuck, Dad's stuck." I said, "No, I'm not stuck this time, kid. I'm not stuck this time." Yeah, I tried to bucket down and get it out, and it just, soupy.
Yeah, once you bury that thing with the tiller on the back, I mean, you're at the mercy of the mud then.
Yeah. So, yeah, thankfully I knew a guy. So,
for Connor saying,
nice.
Right? For Connor saying that's like swinging words once you're actually stuck. Because, I mean, you're already pissed off that you're stuck. And then you got a 1-year-old screaming it out loud for everybody to hear at that point.
I kept under wraps for the longest time. And then my wife locked my father-in-law's keys in his truck. And so he came over to unlock the truck. And so they were talking, and he's like, "Yeah, I've been over here a few times this year, trying to," I was like, "Pulled your son-in-law out back?" He goes, "Pulled your son-in-law out back? What?" And so he told him the whole story, how he pulled me out. And so now it's out in the public now. So
yeah, it's campfire story now.
Yeah.
Rich, you talked about a lot last year, and I've honestly have like stuck to this since we talked about it, like the screening aspect of it all, planting the grasses, and it's really, again, it's hard for me to do at the properties that I have, but I've really thought more into it, cutting down less, just, the taller weeds coming through, just trying to use that as screening or whatever, just because I don't want the farmer disking up, it's expensive stuff, obviously. When do you usually plant that, like for the screening? Like, is that earlier in the springtime? Does it take a few years even? How does that go?
So, yeah. So like my border patrol is a screening, my smoke screen is a screening. That's an annual. You got to plant it every year. I like to have those in in order to achieve its potential, right? You want as much height as you can. So I like to get it in by the second week of June.
Okay.
Usually the first week's the best, depending on the growing season. This year, I don't think it'd been that big of an issue to get it in a little late, just because we had some pretty good rain there towards the beginning and middle of June. So yeah, anywhere, once the ground temperature gets 55, 60 degrees, then it's when I like to start getting that in. Sorghum is the main structure in those blends, the smoke screen and border patrol, and it's a corn family. So it likes that soil temperature to be, 55, 60 degrees. So I really pay attention to that. I'm not out there with the old meat thermometer. The wife doesn't like me doing that anymore. So I found a website where I can just punch in, area codes or zip codes, and they'll give you the soil temp for that area. So you're pretty close. Switchgrass can go in earlier. Switchgrass, I call that the patient man's grass, because it does take time depending on what brand you're using or what strand you're using. They've came a long way with switchgrasses. I like to get that, and you can plant that as early as beginning of May or late in the fall. You can plant it, but I like to do it early. They say I was using a cave and rock is what I originally used, and it worked okay. But I mean, it literally took 3-4 years to achieve 5, maybe 6 foot if it was a real good season, and it didn't get real thick. So I talked to my seed supplier, on what's going on, and I went with RC Big Rock. A lot of people are using that. It's becoming very popular. The first year I planted it the first week in May. And by the end of the summer, I had 4 to 6 foot out of that first year.
Wow.
I fertilized it. I made sure everything was killed off real well the season before. So, I mean, I did everything that I needed to do to achieve that, but it was possible to do, so I seen you can do it. So I can tell people it can be done. Right now, that see big rock, if I was to go out and take a picture of it up front or out back, it's 8 foot tall in some spots.
Wow.
So, and
how often do you have to change, like, to mow that down or till it under and plant new seed down for that switchgrass? Or is that gonna be...
You don't just either control burn it or just I mow it in the spring. I kind of messed up a little bit. It works real good for what I want it to do. It's bringing the deer. I have a bunch of pine trees and I did it on the edge of pine trees. It works great for a thermal in the wintertime. The deer will bed between the pine trees and the switchgrass like I was hoping. They travel in there real good. But I can't control burn it because it's too close to my pine trees, and we all know how pine trees like fire. So that was the only thing I wish I would have done. I wish I would have moved a little farther away from it so I can control burn it. But I've had great success just mowing it every spring. I like to mow it before the birds start nesting. Get it out of there, get down, because I feel terrible when I'm mowing along and you come over a turkey nest later in that season. So I like to mow it down as soon as my tractor will stay on top of the ground.
Because we try to do some of that for even our permanent, like, goose blinds and stuff, plant sorghum or whatever around it, just to add that little bit of cover to it. The first year, it was like one of those things where we didn't see much growth out of it, and it's like, man, this stuff kind of sucks. But maybe it's just kind of one of those things where it needed a few years to kind of take off, and it's probably sprayed by now, and who knows what happened.
Well, sorghum's an annual, so you got to plant it every year. So, the switchgrass isn't. The switchgrass will actually, keep growing and it'll extend out now if you don't control it. I use it for fawning. I got a fawning area out back that they use, man. I had a buddy of mine out here. He's not a hunter. He used to hunt. We're sitting on a deck having a beer and there's deer running around. Something spooked the deer, and that deer took right off to the switchgrass. Man, as soon as he got that switchgrass, he's like, that deer just completely disappeared. And it was a full grown, it was a 2.5-year-old doe. It was a big doe. And he's like, you can't even see that switchgrass move. I don't know. I said, they've got their little pockets in there. And when I put it in, what I like to do when I put that stuff in is I raise my drill up. So if I'm doing long stretches, I'll go and I'll raise my drill up for about 6 foot and I'll drop it back down. I'll go another 100 foot and I'll raise my drill up so it doesn't plant switchgrass there. And it gives pockets throughout that area of the switchgrass that the deer don't have to mat all that switchgrass down. They can just go in. There's just some native grasses in there that they may even eat, mow it down themselves, and then they'll lay in those pockets. But if you do that enough, you establish enough area to get deer to bed in there and not have to coexist with each other, right? Because them family groups, when they're fawning, they don't like to do that. And, they want to stay away for a while until the fawns get a little bigger. And, man, I'm telling you, man, it's worked out so great. We can sit here and watch the does come out of the switchgrass and they'll go off to the other side. And then an hour later, you see the fawns come out. And there's clover right next to that. So the fawns come out and they just nibble on that clover. And if something spooks them, man, they're gone. Boom. They're back in the switchgrass. You don't see them. So it worked out as well as I was hoping it was going to.
Now, for your fawning area, how big is that? Like, how big of a spot is somebody who wanted to do like a fawning area in the springtime? I mean, obviously, in your scenario, with it being at the house and having a good sized property to work with, it helps out a ton, obviously. But how big is that fawning area?
So I have like 3 of them, and they are anywhere from 4 acres to 2 acres. Okay. But they're not all in one area. They're not all in one spot. I have them. I only have 40 acres, 20 of it, actually about 25, 26 of it's probably wooded. And then, I got open field, I got a bunch of pine trees planted in there and the food plots. So I have them staged like in the corners of my property. Like one's way back in the northwest corner. And then my other one, now that one's down in the southeast corner. And then I've got another one over in the northeast corner. So I've got them staggered basically around my food plots, right? So these fawning areas and these bedding areas are all around, and all my food plots are right in the center. And then I got all my swamp out back, which, the mature bucks and the other deer, they bed back in there all the time, especially come rut. They love it back there. we go in, and I have another sanctuary back there. It's about 4 acres. That's swamp. And we go in there once, maybe twice a year. If we have to retrieve a deer, we'll go retrieve a deer. Otherwise, we go in there in the spring to shed hunt and make deer bedding, freshen up the deer beds, make new ones. Excuse me. If they're not using them, then I just trash that and I make a new one. Then we don't go in there for the rest of the year.
Now, with that, the fawning on like the corners of the property, are you worried as a property owner, I guess, having it so close to the other properties and them getting up close to the bedding areas? What was your thought process on putting like in the corners, I guess?
Basically, is because the only area that I had that it wasn't producing a very good food plot.
Okay.
It was either too wet, so I didn't know if it was going to be too wet in the spring or in the fall. I had a few food plots fail, and the other area was just an area that I can't access real well. It's kind of hilly, but the deer loved laying in there, so I just went in there and made that one a bedding area. Fortunately, the one bedding area is so close to my house that nobody can legally gun hunt it because it's too close to my house. The other side of the property he's a super good friend of mine, about like brothers, so I don't have to worry about him. He's benefiting from everything that I'm doing, so he's real cool with it. The only thing I do worry about is the road. The one area does go up towards the road, so I try to keep the food as far in as I can to keep them so they'll bed there, but you can never keep them out of the road. I mean, we got pines on both sides of the road now, and it's just a perfect travel corridor to get back and forth from that river I had mentioned earlier on the other side of the road. So, but I'm not real worried about the neighbors. I got a pretty good rapport with most of my neighbors. So, I mean, we know what the expectations are. I had one neighbor to the west of me. We had a conversation last year. They put a blind right on the property line, 20 yards off my pole barn.
Oh,
and
right.
I had issues, and I told him, I says, listen, I got people walking in and out of them pines because my mom and dad live across the street. My mom still hunts. So she walks all the time across the road and walks down them pines. And I told the guy, says, if you pull the trigger out of that window, because there's a deer walking on that edge, I said, you're shooting right down my lane. And you don't know if anyone's coming down there, But the guy was super cool about it, He's like, hey, we'll just take that window. We'll eliminate that window right out of that blind if you don't mind. Because I told him, because he's like, well, you can't do anything. I go, oh, yeah, I can. I said, I make it where you can't gun hunt out of that blind. Pretty simple, Nothing with a bow, But I said, it's one phone call, pal, and you're not using that during gun season. And he didn't realize it.
Can of gas.
Yeah, right. And it's amazing, this gentleman he's a retired gentleman, and he had never heard of the safety zone around building. He's been hunting his whole life and never heard that. I'm like, really? I guess there's people out there, maybe he's hunted farmland where he's never had an issue with that, where he's, 400 yards from anybody. But I thought that was kind of strange. A gentleman of his age, hunting as many years as he has, had no idea that was a thing.
I had a conversation with a buddy of mine not that long ago, and I met a guy on the road that I didn't know at the time, but he hunted a neighboring property, and he, you ask the guys like, "Hey, what are you seeing?" And you expect, you kind of hope they say like, are friendly about it, and they kind of show you, but like down deep, like that they're not saying what they're actually seeing or the target deer or whatever it may be, and it's kind of the same thing. How often are those guys playing stupid with you and just not, saying everything up front anyway?
Yeah.
Once you get to know them and stuff, it's a different scenario. But right off the bat, it's kind of got to expect it.
Yeah, it's crazy because even friends, even your friends will hide what's out there from you. I don't care who they are. If there's a nice buck out there, I shot a nice buck here about 4 or 5 years ago, and it was just under 150, and everybody. A lot of people knew it was there, but I didn't know everybody knew it was there. I had it on camera, and I was kind of like, oh, hush. I set up a blind for my daughter. I want her to get it and everything. And she ended up having something to do. And so I took her spot and shot that deer the day I told her I was done. It was a good time. She was a little disappointed, but I'm like, hey, it's more important to me. But yeah, when I shot that deer, man, it was amazing the amount of people that knew that deer existed. Like, they're like, you shot the split brow buck. And I'm like, you live 10 miles away from here. How do you know about that split brow buck? He's like, man, I've been shining that buck in that field for 3 months. And I'm like, who else knew about that? So it's crazy that all these people, and this was a good friend of mine, and he never even told me that deer was running around a field not but 100 yards off my back property line. So
Crazy.
fortunately, I knew because I had it on camera, but I wasn't telling him either. So I guess I'm guilty.
It is what it is. It is what it is.
That happened at my parents' place about 5 or 6 years ago when my dad shot a monster one. Not a monster, but a nice one. And like everyone knew about it, but no one was saying anything, right? Like all the neighbors, like they said, shining trail cameras had them, and then they come out of the woodwork and like yeah, we knew that buck was there. We knew that we've seen that buck before, but no one's saying anything. It's just funny how in the deer hunting community, like it seems like a lot of us are pretty friendly, but when it comes to when you got a big buck, everyone's keeps it pretty lockstep,
Yeah. It's the walking morel mushroom, right? Nobody lets you know where they're finding the morels either. So everyone's got their little secrets when it comes to that.
And that's the funny thing. That's the funny thing too. Like with like morels per se. Like I have a buddy that he morel hunts somewhere up north of where I grew up at, and I'm like, just tell me. I'm not going to go up and look. I'm not going to go up and look for him. So where do you find him at? And he goes, I'm not telling you. I'm like, it's just crazy how some of those guys are.
Yeah. It's fishing, morel mushroom hunting, the big bucks. Everyone wants to be secretive, but well, and partially, this never used to be an issue, and maybe I'm overthinking it, but it never used to be an issue where you had to worry about a deer in your area and then everybody pounding on the neighboring doors, trying to get permission to hunt that. That is super common, man. I mean, I used to knock on doors a lot, but you get these people that's all they do is they drive around and they shine, or they got their spotting scopes attached to their window and they're seeing these deer. And now they're knocking on all these doors trying to get permission on property that they probably never even thought about hunting before. That happens a lot. People around here don't give it as much as they used to. I mean, we've had houses get shot and everything else out here. And back in the day, you go out here behind my house and it sounded like World War III because everybody from GM was out here hunting a farmer's piece of property that worked at GM. That used to be the thing. It used to be crazy out here, but you don't see the numbers like that.
I think social media has brought attention to a lot of things where, let's say, like we talked about, like that hedgerow or that ditch line in the middle of a field that nobody thinks that deer live in. Now people are starting to understand that those bigger bucks are living in those hedgerows or tree lines or whatever it may be. That ditch is 20 foot wide in that section and nobody realizes it. And, he's only got that small circle that he's moving because he feels safe and could see both sides of the field or, whatever it may be. I think people are realizing more about that. Like the deer my dad shot last year. I mean, it was in the 160s and he shot it a 5-acre woodlot. It's just one of those things where I think even though the small woodlots like that, people are realizing that it holds a lot more deer and you don't have to have a huge piece of property to really do good anymore.
It's like them fence rows we talked about earlier. The farmers are pulling all them fence rows out because they want that 7 more rows of corn. You know how many deer probably lay in that?
Right.
Last year, my wife and I were riding around in a side-by-side. It was middle of October, nice day. We're riding along, and I just happened to be looking across this. It was a bean field, and it had one of the waterways that go through them. You know how they leave the grass because there's a tile in there. This was probably 150 yards off the road, and it was a fair-sized one. And we're just putzing along, and all of a sudden, this buck was impressive. I could see his horns with the naked eye from the road, and he just stood up right out of the middle of that. Stood up, looked around, and took off on a straight run towards the woodlot that was about 200 yards away. And it wasn't 30 seconds later, as I'm watching him, 50 yards behind him, a buck of the same size, if not bigger, stood up and did the same thing. Ran right through that waterway all the way to that woods line. Those deer probably, I'm going to say this was probably 5 o'clock at night. Those deer probably laid there all day long. Nobody's bothering.
Where a lot of people get caught up at, though. I mean, I feel like a lot of people don't, but I don't think a lot of people realize those big deer sit like that and they don't move because they literally just time you almost. They know when you're showing up. They can see you the entire time, where you walk to, where you come from, whatever, where you parked at. So now if they see a vehicle parked there, they know what's up. They know the gig's up at that point. The deer my dad shot, the only picture we got of him was the night before. And Trav was like, I'd be in there in the morning. He's going to be in there, yada, yada, yada. I thought Trav was full of it, to be honest with you. And I had my dad walk like the longest way possible into that wood lot. And, come to find out he was still in there like 24 hours later. And, they just feel safe. They're able to see. And that's the hardest part about my property. It's all field. So those deer could see you from a far ways away. And if you're not kind of strategic on how you get in, you're kind of the hunt's over before the hunt even begins per se.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're there for a reason. They know what they're doing. I had a buddy that he had a honey hole and he's like, man, I'm always getting these bucks. He says, but they're always popping up on the other side of me. He goes, I don't know where they're coming from. I go, and I went out there and looking at his property and I go, they're walking down this drain ditch. He goes, what? I go, I said, this trail's coming. It's beat right down the side of this hill. I said, there is not a trail leaving this drainage ditch on the other side. That trail is leading into the drain ditch and they're walking all the way down that drain ditch and you can't see the bottom of the drain ditch because you're sitting above it. He says, that deer's walking right in front of you at 40 yards and you're never seeing that deer. And he's like, no way. Put cameras in there. And he's like, you wouldn't believe it. And I go, I do believe it. I told you. I said, I told you where that deer was walking. He's like, man, I've been hunting this forever. I never even gave that a thought. And I'm like, that's why they're skirting you. They know you're there. They're walking that drain ditch. You need to move up, and he did. He ended up being real successful. So it's just crazy how they'll sneak through there. And that drain ditch was pretty nasty. I mean, it was pretty thick. I was surprised that, they would move through there like they did.
They got little funnels and tunnels and whatever else they got. They're almost like the people in New York making the tunnels underground. I mean, they got their ways of moving around the city and going undetected. Mm-hmm. This time of year, if somebody is out and kind of doesn't know what to do with their property, with their food plots, want to make a food plot, don't know if they should just do like a throw and grow or plant, or what should people kind of look at in doing, or an easy food plot per se?
An easy food plot, one thing you want to make sure is how much sun you're getting. If you're putting it on a field edge, you want to make sure you're on the right side of that field edge. If you're not getting a lot of sun, that's going to be the first place you're going to fail. You put some in there like brassicas that require 6 hours of sun and you're only getting 4 hours of sun. They'll grow, but they're never going to mature and get what you want. The throw and grows, and I have throw and grow, no-till we call it. And we've been very successful with it. You can be more successful with it, if that makes sense, just by working some dirt. Kill off the competing vegetation, everything that's there already, because anything that's growing is pulling nutrients out of the ground that you want to give that seed you're putting in the ground. You want to give your seed that you want to grow the best chance and the most nutrients it can get. So you're going to get all the negative vegetation out of there, anything that's going to compete, by spraying it off. Some people, are getting into this. They till it a couple of times, realistically, that's a lot of time. People have full-time jobs. They don't have that much time. Roundups, what a lot of people do. So you just want to make sure you kill it off real good. One way you can do a no-till or a throw and grow is you can kill off the vegetation, give it like 2 or 3 days, and go and spread your seed. Then once you spread your seed, mow it. Mow all that grass, all them weeds down, and mow it and drop it on top of that seed that you put on there. It's doing two things. You're driving on it, so it's going to push that seed that you are driving on into the ground a little bit. The grasses and the weeds that you're cutting down, they're already dead because you sprayed them. They may still be green, but they're already dead. They're going to lay on top of that seed, which is going to hold the moisture at the ground, at the seed, and it's going to help it germinate. It's going to keep the birds off it. It's going to keep anything that could see the seed. You can be real successful doing it that way, just by mowing on top of it and having that layer of grass over top.
Almost like a straw.
That's probably, yeah, basically. And that's all you're doing. So when it rains, it holds that moisture. And as that's decaying, it's just more nutrients for the ground, right? It's just going in there and gives it more organic matter. That's a real easy way to do it. Clovers are real easy to do. You can not frost seed, but you can throw broadcast clovers down on the ground in the fall. Say you're doing something, you got a spot that you worked, maybe you killed it. You can put that clover down in the fall, just pack it into the dirt and you should be fine. Won't produce you much, but it'll be a good spring plot. And then all you got to do is spray and maintain. But any kind of work you can do to disturb the dirt so that seed can make soil to seed contact, you're going to have better germination. And that's why I say if you were going to just do the mow method, you want to make sure you spread that seed down before you mow, before you knock as much of it down. You know, you want it to be standing so the seed can fall into the ground. And then when you mow it, anything that got caught will help put it down there too. Those are some of the easiest food plots to establish. You can do those in the woods, like our deep woods. That'll grow in 2 hours of sunlight to full sunlight. Our crop duster will grow in 2 hours of sunlight to full sunlight. If you have trails in the woods, our lethal winter oats will grow in filtered sunlight. That stuff's growing on the floorboard of my truck by the end of the season every year. It's just, I mean, it's phenomenal. That stuff's great. It'll grow on cement if you get a little wet.
Wow.
So I like to put that on field edges and into trails to where you don't have, you know, sun all the time. It's just coming through the trees a little bit. You can be real successful with that. Again, they grow later in the season, gives the deer something that they don't have.
No, I mean, I'm honestly gonna have to get some because me and my dad were just talking about it, and that sounds right up our alley. Honestly, I'm gonna have to grab some for sure.
Yeah, you know, my statement for our lethal winter oats is we call them winter lethal oats, but you can plant them anytime. The reason we call them winter lethal oats is because most oats will die and they look like a shriveled up worm when they get frosted or snow on top of them. You can shovel the snow off our oats and they're green. And the deer will do the same thing. They'll shovel the snow right off and just pound them. You know, I tell people when failure is not an option, put in lethal winter oats. They grow anywhere. Sand. I planted them in sand that was so bad that I couldn't pull my seed drill through because it would bury my tractor. So I just ended up broadcasting it on there and ran it over with a chain drag, the harrow drag, the harrow drag. Ran it over that. I had great success. We keep doing that, and now we're actually getting dirt on that sand, right? It's starting to hold organic matter. It's starting to hold moisture a little better, and the deer just keep pounding it every fall. So it's a win-win.
A pretty, you know, successful feeling, and just kind of seeing the growth over properties that you've done for a couple years, per se.
Yeah, the key is, and I'm guilty of this, is you don't turn the sand. You know, everyone's like, well, I put all this in there, you know, and it grew great. I'm going to turn it over next year. Well, all you've done is you just brought all that sand that was underneath what you put on there, and now you're right back to where you were. You just buried all your organic matter. It's not going to do you a whole lot of good. So if you can do the no-till or a drill in them sandy areas, you're way better off. We have a retain product that holds moisture, grabs all the moisture and nutrients it can and holds it in the ground at the root base until it dries out and it leaches it back. That's the only time I'll turn sand. And I'll turn that, put that retain in there. Now that'll last in the soil for up to 3 years. I don't have to turn that soil for 3 years at least, if even turn it after that. But I have that in there now. It's, you know, it's potassium based, so it's still nutrients for the ground. Once the 3 years is up, you'll never know it was there. It's just food. But it's such a great synthetic organic matter, I call it, because it holds that water where otherwise it would just run through the sand. It'd pull all your nutrients and all the water, and it's going to run right past the root base and nothing's going to get to it. But then grab it and it holds it right there at the root base and leaches it back in. I have great success with that in clay also.
Wow.
Because it breaks the compaction up. You know, clay, especially if it's a clover field and you're running over it, you know, mowing it 3 times a year, that clay turns into rock. You know, you just compact it down so bad. But you put in, if you're going to do a clover plot like I do, I put that retain in there, I work it in the dirt. When it swells up, it breaks that compaction up in that clay. When it retracts back down and leaches back down to its natural state, now there's air pockets and gaps in the soil. So now your roots are getting the oxygen it couldn't get before from the compaction. And it keeps doing it. Rains, it does it again, right? So for 3 years, your clover is going to get an exceptional jump rather than just mowing it and compacting the soil on it all the time.
That's what I was thinking. I need to get some, for at least for my front, it's sandy and clay. And so that's like the two needs for retain. Like, where did something like that come from? Like, where, how did you think of that idea to like, hey, this would be perfect for the soil, you know?
I'm not going to lie. I didn't think of it. You know, Nick Percy, the original owner of Killer Food Plots, actually had that in place. It's really crazy because it's basically, other than the chemical that it's made out of, it's the same thing they put in diapers, right? I mean, have you ever seen a baby diaper get put in a swimming pool?
Mm-hmm.
It just swells up and it's all that gel stuff, right? It's the same thing. Just the composite, it's different. Those are made out of something different. That's probably a sodium base because it's cheaper. I can get sodium base too, but I don't want to put salt in my soil. I'd rather put potassium in there, so that way when it's done in 3 years, I don't have to worry about it. But yeah, that's basically what it is. It's similar product. I wouldn't suggest going and dumping a bunch of diapers out in your field and spreading that stuff around by
See, I got a bunch of diapers, so I mean, that's what I was thinking about doing is ripping them up and throwing them out there. But yeah, I guess I'll wait.
It's probably way cheaper to buy it by the bag than a diaper.
Trav wears a big diaper, so I mean, he might have enough. So just saying.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's not talking about a kid. He's talking about himself. That's what it is.
Oh, okay.
Huh.
Let's take a quick breather from the action. Let's talk promos. Grab 25% off Huntproof with code GREATHP25. Save 20% off Cooler Guard using code GLO. You can take 15% off your order from Hodag using code Great Lakes. And take 10% off Pattern Pros using code Great Lakes 10. Now back to the show.
Yeah, I guess my question would be on on the management side of things. What's the step-by-step with like a client? Like, is there like a basic package that someone can buy, or is it all based on the person? And then like, how does that change from like, say, are you full service where you're going to go and do the food plots, the tree stands, the trimming, stuff like that? Or are you strictly on the food plot and like the deer habitat side of things?
So I'm heavy in the habitat and the food plot, and the seed and everything. But I offer everything. I sell 360 gun blinds. I install them on properties. I pretty much whatever a customer wants. If I go out and I walk a piece of property, that's where we get a game plan. What are your plans? Are you, looking for immediate gratification right now? Is this going to be long term? Because there's different ways to go at it. Long term, if they want me to just come in and get them started, there's a lot of guys that just want me to educate them. And I love that. That's great. Because they're like, well, do you mind if I tag along? Heck no, man. You can sit on the fender of my tractor if you want to. If you're telling me that you just want me to show you and you want to learn this year and you're going to take it over, I'm good with that. You're not offending me on that, right? Let's do this. Let's make you successful. Step by step. And then, yeah, we'll have phone conversations after that and, build relationships with them. Then you start getting the cool pictures of them shooting their deer. But no, man, I'll do whatever it takes to make somebody's property what they want. I manage a fair sized piece of property over by Lake Michigan, and that guy's super cool. He's just like, do your thing. And so he doesn't want to take the chance of messing it up. Like some people don't realize that if you take brassicas, you really shouldn't plant them in the same field for more than 2 years in a row because it can start giving the toxicity. I can't say the word, but you know what I mean. Toxic in the soil. It starts getting bad for the dirt. So you want to rotate something in there, oats or even make it a clover field or something. So, I'll go in and I'll educate people on that. There's times where I'll just go in and look at a piece of property and never see it again. Right. This is what you do. I'll get loggers in there. If they want loggers in there to do, habitat work, whether they want a 10-year cut where they're just taking the select timbers, which I personally really like that. I'm a fan of that. I'm not a fan of hinge cutting. There's a lot of reasons for it. I don't do hinge cutting because it's very dangerous and I'm a one-man show.
Yeah.
One, if I get hurt and I'm out in the middle of nowhere by myself, that's not good. And if I get hurt, I can't do the rest of the work. So, and plus, in my opinion, hinge cutting done well can be very productive for a first year, 2-3 years, done really well. But when you get into that 5th, 6th year, now you just got a bunch of dead stuff that's falling down. It's making a mess. And it tends to become a predator habitat because them predators can move through that stuff way better. They can get under it and through it way better than a deer can. So it will actually become more of a nuisance for the deer to go in there and more of a danger than it is any good after, anywhere from 3 to 7 years, depending on how well it was done. So I stay away from the hinge cut. I will get people in touch with people that will hinge cut if they want to. I mean, it's their property. They can do what they want with it, but that's just something I don't offer.
I guess, have you had a client where you're like, you go in, you take a look at it, this is what they want to do, and you're like, I can't do that. I don't feel comfortable doing that kind of stuff. Is that just more on the hinge cutting side of things, or is there anything else? Like for example, like an example of like a client that you're like, hey, I just can't do this, you know?
Yeah, there has been some things, you know. There's some timber work that I won't do. Most of the time, what I run into with customers is it's not really that I can't do it. It's just that this is what they want. But when we get there, let's be real about it. You know, you want brassicas in this field this year, but it's sand. You know, let's talk about planting something in that sand this year, maybe next year, and working towards them brassicas. You know, work towards that goal instead of putting something in there that is going to struggle possibly to grow, and then nobody's happy. So I get more of that, more of a what they want to do to what we should do. But you know what? It's their property. If they decide that they want me to do that, and I can safely do whatever they want, I'll do it. You know, but I give them my suggestion. I'll never tell somebody what they have to do on their property. You know, all I can do is go on there and explain what I would do. But, you know, a lot of the people that I deal with that have me on their property, they're so open. That's why I'm there, right? A lot of these guys are like, I really don't know. I want to learn. I want to know. Very seldom do I get a guy that you walk on their property and, you know, when they're done, he looks at me and goes, "You're full of shit." You know, I mean, you know, it's just, it's not that common. You know, a lot of people are really laid back, and education's a big thing right now, man. A lot of people want to learn. You know, some people just want it done. Don't get me wrong. And I love those guys, you know, and they come on my property, just get it done, take care of it. But other people, they want to learn and want to learn how to do it right. And eventually they'll take it over. I've had customers that have done that. And then 2 years later, they're like, "Hey man, I'm not a farmer. Hey, I enjoy mowing or whatever, you know, I'll do that.
Yeah.
But I don't want to do this anymore." So, you know, then I go back and I start working it. That's happened a couple of times, but no, I mean, there's not a whole lot I won't do for a customer to help habitat, you know.
Yeah.
And like I say, anything that's safe and ethical, you know, I'll do what I can to help them be successful.
Do you have an expectation, I guess, with the food plots per se, where you're like, hey, like I did this, this, and this, it's not growing, like let me come back in, you know, maybe charge diesel or whatever, and then redo the food plot? Or is that something where you're like, hey, I put it in right now, and you know, if it doesn't grow, it's gonna be like you gotta leave it, or you gotta pay me to come back and do it. Like I don't know how that process works.
So that's a fine line, you know, and that's where you really got to know the person you're working with, their character.
Yeah.
Because we've had issues where, you know, this didn't come in, it didn't grow, you know, you need to come back and do this and blah, blah, blah. I understand when they're upset, you know, so I'll go back to the property. Well, you get there and the deer have completely stomped everything into the ground, what they didn't eat. I mean, there's just so many tracks, or it was a drought, you know, anything, something like that. Now, if I go back to a property, and I have done this, and I go back to a property and I feel that it was something that I may have failed on, or maybe I could have done better, then yes, for that customer, it's a, you know, site by site kind of thing and job by job kind of thing. But yes, I would be like, okay, I feel that this should have been better and it's on me. So you pay for the materials, so I'm not out that cost, and I'll give you all my time and labor, and I will make this right. You know, or, you know, not in every scenario is that way. You know, maybe it got flooded out. You know, I mean, I can't, if someone's property gets flooded out, there's nothing I can do. Mother Nature's my worst enemy. But will I go back in there and charge them the full amount to do it again? I personally can't do that, even though it wasn't my fault. They're still going to get charged, right? But maybe instead of paying a full workup at $1,400 an acre, now I can just drill it at $300 an acre, you know, and save them that amount of money because the dirt work has already been done. And, you know, I like to use liquid fertilizers a lot. I probably use liquid fertilizers more now than I ever have, more now than I do pelletized. So easy, so convenient, and it's instant gratification for the plant. I mean, as soon as it hits it, it's eaten, right? It's not waiting for it to break down, come in contact with the dirt, neutralizing that particle of dirt and moving to the next one. You know, you spray it on the dirt, it's getting all over the dirt, it's getting all over the vegetation. And then when it rains, it just makes it better. So that's one of the big changes in the food plot industry is liquid fertilizers are really taking hold. You know, it's convenient, right? So I can spray 24 acres by having 10 boxes of 2.5 gallon jugs in the back of my truck or I can go do that 24 acres and I got 11,000 pounds of pelletized fertilizer I got to handle bag by bag.
Cutting
right?
bags open, putting them in the, yep.
I did that last year. It was 11,000 pounds of fertilizer I spread in one afternoon on a property, bag by bag. I touched every bag twice.
Oh my God.
It was, and that's when I started really looking into these liquids, and I'm like, this is just the way to go. A sprayer takes up way less room, I mean, it's just the advancing technologies. Like our soil defender that's sitting behind me here, that's a 1055, but that's got humic acid, fulvic acids. It actually works the dirt. So when you spray it on the dirt, it's actually waking up all them bacteria and the microbes and enzymes that are there doing nothing, just dormant because they're trapped. It actually wakes them up and starts making them work. And then the dirt's working for you because there's so much trapped nutrients in soil that people don't understand. And that soil defender liquid will actually help release that and get it ready and available for the plant. I spray it right on my clover. People say they're nuts. You can't put nitrogen on clover. It's 10.55. When you look at my clover field and tell me I can't put nitrogen on my clover, it works different. It's not like I'm putting urea on it. It's the components in it work differently than just putting down a pelletized fertilizer.
Is there a next step to all of this? Do you think there's another, make it even easier for guys that are creating food plots or the farmers? What do you think is the next big thing that's going to be out there to help everybody out?
Drones.
Well, yeah.
Drones are the next big thing. I got a customer I did work for last year, and this dude went 2 feet deep into this drone thing. He's got at least 2 huge drones. He can spray, he can seed, he's got thermal, so he can do population, fly around, look at population of the deer, so he can see. Yeah, and he does. So he's got, his drone will actually fly over and tell you the level of nutrients in your soil to an extent. Like it'll give you shades of color. Like this is green, this soil is good, this is red, this is yellow. I mean, insane what they're doing with drones, right?
That's insane. I already heard of that.
I didn't either, man. He sent me a picture. He's like, hey, check this out. And I'm like, what are you showing me? I said, that's a weird thermal. I said, that thermal looks weird. He goes, no, man, it's showing you the health of the soil. He goes, green is healthy, and then it goes yellow, then it goes red. And I worked the dirt the year before that he was showing me, and I knew exactly where the yellow and the red was because it was all sand. I'm like, that's amazing. Oh. And where I had fertilized his food plots last year were green. Everything around it was yellow, which means the fertilizer was still doing something and it was still better. I'm like, that's insane. I didn't even know that existed.
That exists, to be honest with you, from a own image.
Yeah. From
I don't get it.
A mile in the sky.
So is that pulling pH levels, or is that just what is that reading? Did he give you any more information?
He didn't give me a lot of depth. We were just going over text on it. He wants to get with me and show me. I don't know if it gives him the pH. I don't think it goes that in depth, but it does, for the colors. I'm sure the colors have a range. He didn't explain that to me. Like the grains probably got a range, right? It's like 6 to 7 or something like that, I'd imagine. But just the fact that he can do that from the air, and then he can just go and take the same drone and throw fertilizer in it, pelletized or liquid. He can do either. He can spray liquid. He can do pelletized, seed. They're using that. The co-op elevators are doing that for interseeding now. So say a farmer gets a field that got flooded in the inside and they can't get a piece of equipment in there without running a bunch of crops over. Now the elevator, like our co-op elevator out here, they go out there with this big trailer and a big platform, and he stands on top of the platform, gets his drone out, and he goes in there and seeds it. Doesn't have to touch one crop that's living. Yeah.
Wow. It's crazy what even just the hunting world has come to, per se. With all that technology that's coming into it, something like a sport that's been old school kind of mentality of it all, and how much technology is actually going into it. It's crazy to me to think about.
Well, I don't like it a lot. Like, I'm not a big fan of the thermals. I think thermals are great for coyote hunting. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to be that guy, right? I mean, predator hunting, yeah, it's great. But I like to do squirrel hunts. We do a lot of squirrel hunts around, local places do these things. I got back into that a few years ago, man. For some reason, I just enjoy squirrel hunting. It's a good time. But then you're standing there and these guys that are winning all the time, they're out there using thermals. They got thermal
Huh.
binoculars and they're looking in the trees and they're looking in the nest and then they're shooting nests because they know there's a squirrel in that nest. And it's like you're taking all the ethical part of hunting out of it and all the fun out of it, right? I mean, whatever happened to sit next to a tree with your squirrel call, which I only found several years ago and thought was amazing, and now they're out there with these thermals going, yeah, there's a squirrel in that nest, shoot it. I mean, it's getting too
people
much.
are using thermals for everything now. I mean, there's I knew a guy that works for a sporting center, and he got a thermal and he has a binocular with him when he walks out to the deer blind, and he's scanning the
Yeah.
woods, and so when he's walking in, he's not bumping deer. And he was telling me that couple opening, he shot his buck and he binoculared in there to see if where it went, and he had someone else with him. And he's like, "Oh shit, there's another deer in there." And it was another big buck too, and they were able to shoot that, not using binocular, of course, but they just knew that
Right.
animal was in there. So it's taking over every aspect of hunting.
Well,
Well,
and it goes back to a conversation, Trav, where we talked about like the trail cameras, for example. Like if they're going to go away with the trail cameras over time, because how many states are going away from it? I mean, how far are people going to let technology take over the hunting world or the fishing world with livestock imaging and whatever it may be? I mean, how far is too far?
they're taking and they're making it easy. They're making it a poacher sport. I hate to say that, right? Because you can put a thermal on a crossbow now. So,
Mhm.
I mean, how much more of a lethal nighttime hunt can you have with a thermal on a crossbow? I mean, and they've got these crossbows shooting 100 yards, which I don't agree with anyway. I mean, it's cool to do it right at a target. I wouldn't want to do it at a deer. Now they're kind of loud for that, but it's just the technology is just, it's making it easy for the people that don't want to do it right. I mean,
One of our close friends, his property, they caught a guy. He had like 11 deer in his barn. He was shooting them up at night. The DNR actually set up a target buck out in the field and caught him. But when they set up the target deer, or like the fake deer, the guy spotlighted another deer, ended up shooting the live deer, and then ended up shooting the target deer after that. It was a hefty fight. I forget where that exactly was, but yeah, I mean, like you said, it's a poacher sport, unfortunately.
it's just me. I mean, that's like that chain you put on your gate, right? It only keeps the honest people out. I mean, it doesn't keep anybody that wants in there. They really want in there. They're getting in there, right? I mean, that's kind of what all this technology is doing for those people that want to do it the wrong way. It just makes it super easy. It's a little disappointing. I mean, I don't know how true this is, but I was reading an article the other day. The DNR have actually stepped up their decoy game because of thermals. Now they are making decoys that radiate heat because people that are poaching at night are using thermals. And if they do their target buck and it doesn't show heat, anybody that knows what their thermal's doing is like, what the heck is that? They're not going to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
So they've had to up their game to keep up with the technology of the hunting industry.
Wow.
Yeah, it's getting crazy. I have a feeling that there's going to be, like, is it Iowa that's already trying to outlaw game cameras? If they haven't already, one of them.
There's a handful of states that don't allow them anymore.
And I think thermals are going to be in line with that. Eventually, thermals are going to be, something's going to have to happen with thermals because I think they're being used way more for illegal activities than people think, unfortunately. I mean, a guy that uses a thermal to walk into his blind, I mean, if you can afford one of those, I mean, that's kind of cool, right? If you're using it for that, I mean, you're not bumping deer, but I looked at one of those things. They're like $3,000 for a good handheld binocular.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm like, buddy, I can hunt the way I am and buy a half a cow.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't need to do that.
I got a buddy that uses them for turkey hunting, and it's like, man, one of the biggest things for me is just trying to sneak up underneath them and not like you're sitting there in the morning time, and next thing you know, you're a gobble right over top of you. That's like half of the fun just right there. It's a crazy thing to think about.
It's taking the hunt out of hunting. There's nothing a secret, right? Like that's with like the trail cameras now. Like you get it right to your phone. Where before you had to, wait 2 weeks or a week, whatever you were doing, go out, get your card, and bring it back and see what's out there. Like, oh crap, there was a big buck on my camera, 5 days ago. Now it's like, oh, there's a big buck out back. Now I'm gonna go hunt that stand tomorrow. Just taking some of the guessing game out of it.
Well, it's like, they want the youth to be retained in the hunting, and I think that's great, and I think they should, but when you I watch some of these hunting shows and stuff, and they've got these kids and these young kids, and they're out there, and good for them, they're out there hunting. But then all of a sudden they go to pull up on this deer, and their gun setting in the window, viced down on a table. And all the kid's got to do is put his eye on the scope, move it a little bit, and pull the trigger. That kid's going to have a great time until the first time something happens and it goes bad, right? He misses a deer, wounds a deer. Now all of a sudden it's not that easy. I don't know how many deer I missed before I got my first one, shaking with a 16 gauge pump in my hand with a bead sight on the end of it, hoping this deer slows down so I can get a shot at it. But that was part of the hunt, right? That was me. That was exciting. That's what got the blood pumping, the adrenaline going. And I think kids miss that nowadays. I think some kids are, and granted, as a parent, you want to give your kid the best opportunity to get a deer. You do, you want them to have that bragging right, but you can't take the hunt out of it for them. You got to get that, you got to have that adrenaline rush that I hate to say it, you got to mess up now and then to learn, right? You're not going to learn if you don't take a couple of them bruises right on the chin. We've all done it.
My first deer, it's going to sound unreal and crazy. It was a 20 gauge gun, and I had to take 7 shots at that deer until I finally dropped that thing. I don't know how that deer didn't know what was going on after the third or fourth shot, but I mean it was legit 7 shots it took to get that deer. I got a couple of questions to ask you before we wrap it all up. Michigan's going through a lot of restructure per se with the deer hunting. And last year we had doe only youth season, but it was done I don't know, 2 weeks. It went back to normal. How do you feel about doe only youth seasons instead of going after these bucks, having these kids sit in these windows and just pulling the trigger and not doing too much work? What's your thought on that?
When the youth hunt first started, I watched my good buddy of mine's son go out, and it was pretty exciting. He went out 10 minutes, shot a buck, a nice buck. Wasn't for your first buck, right? It was a very nice buck. The next year, he didn't have that much luck, and I don't know if he's hunted but a handful of times since then, right? Because it was just so easy that first deer. He walked out there and he just shot it. I like the youth hunt to a point, but I don't agree with shooting bucks. Let them shoot a doe. My daughter, her first deer was a doe. She was excited, just as excited with that doe as she was with her biggest buck. Get them out there, let them learn. To take them big bucks out of the herd that early, my thought was, why not put the youth hunting just before gun season, right? I mean, if they're going to lead gun season the way they are, and you're going to have rut, why don't you let the youth hunt go out with a gun for 2 days just before that? Let the bow hunters get all that. Because a lot of the bow hunters like me, I like October, depending on the property I'm hunting, October 19th till, opening day, basically, is when I like to bow hunt. That's key time. But for that youth hunt, I struggle with that, right? That's such a touchy subject because some people will be like, oh, you just don't want kids to kill a big buck and rah, rah, rah. And I just don't want the kid's dad to kill that big buck. I mean, let dad go out there and shoot a doe with their kid during youth hunt if they want to, I guess. But give them the opportunity to hunt early. Absolutely. You want more doe shot, make them shoot a doe during a youth hunt. I mean, that's one way to get it done. If you really want to get your kid into hunting, you're not going to not let them shoot a doe, right? I mean, that's my opinion.
A kid with a mentee tag could hunt at 5 years old, right? And they're going out and shooting these monster bucks with that. When I started, it was you could shoot a buck in the youth hunt with a bow at 10 years old, then with a gun at 12. Would that mentality you think change if that mentee tag went away or they shortened the youth hunt? Because I mean, I think it's from when you can pull the trigger till 15 years old, I think it is. So that's potentially 11 years of the youth hunt, if the dad gets him out there early enough, if that shortened up to 10 to 12 or something like that, because I mean, once you get into 13, 14, 15, do you really need the youth hunt? It's just, I don't know.
For me, I feel like it's one of those things where I would rather have those guys, the kids get used to just hunting and not trophy hunting per se, because if they do shoot a monster at 6 years old, like you said, your buddy's kid was just kind of done after his first deer. If they get used to the does and they know at an early age that the does are okay, obviously to hunt, it might keep those kids around longer and not spoil them so young.
I I like the idea. I guess I never thought of that idea of bringing the age back to, like you say, 10, 12. I would be 100% for that right now, especially because you can use any gun you want in Michigan, anywhere, right? Not a fan of that law.
No.
You know, we have so much farmland over here. They give such a false sense of nobody's going to be looking beyond their target, especially a 5 or 6 year old kid. You know, you're giving them a 243 because it doesn't kick, and you put them in this farm field, and that 243 can shoot all the way across the farm field, and the kid sees a deer at 100 yards. You know, I mean, who's to say that young kid's looking at anything beyond that deer? I mean, sure, there are some. I mean, some people will, show their kids the right way, but I just don't feel like there's enough of that to just allow these young kids to go out there with any rifle they want. 223s are going to be, ARs are going to be all over the woods. Because people are going to just want that repeater, right? And I'm not a fan of that. 223 is not a great caliber for a deer. I don't think it'll kill them, but I think you should use a bigger caliber than that. But you watch, it's going to happen. I really hope not. But I hope there's not any more fatalities this year with that, I don't know. There's a reason they didn't have it down here for so many years. I don't know why they had to change it.
That was my biggest fear is the injuries, right? And not, you get so caught up in the moment, right? When there's a big buck or a deer, like for me, just a deer in general comes in front of me, like I'm shaking, I'm ready to go. Like having that, that prep before to know like, hey, I can't shoot this deer right here because it's on a hill. And if I miss, or even if I shoot it, that bullet's going to keep going, right? There's not a proper backdrop to it. So just like that's what I can see. And that's what I'm worried about, with that is just people not just getting antsy and they maybe miss it. And now they're just rapid firing with the 223, like it, especially on state land. Like it's just going to be a war zone. And I don't know. It's going to be interesting this year.
We get those straight wall cartridges, the 350, the 400, the 450s. That is more than enough for us down here, in my opinion. I mean, that 450 and my 350, those things are 200-yard guns all day long. That's plenty for where I'm hunting. I don't need anything else like that. If I want to shoot farther than that, I'll go out west. So,
if you're shooting further than that, in my opinion, you're almost taking it out of like the hunt. It's almost like the thermal in my eyes. Like you're kind of taking part of that hunt out of the hunt. Like you're like the getting up close to it wise, I guess. I mean, that's all part of it for me. I hunt mainly field, so even last year I've had people like, why don't you use a bigger gun to reach out there and touch them, and it's like it kind of takes part of the hunt out. Like, they're so far from you where they don't even got a chance basically. And to me, it's just not even hunting. Like you're not beating that animal at that point.
Well, I think it was Fred Bear that said hunting's never been a game of how far you can shoot that deer. It's how close you can get to that deer.
100%.
It's not the exact statement he made, but you get the point of it. Right. Especially bow hunting. Yeah, I have a bow that I can shoot. I can target shoot 60, 70 yards, right? Accurately. Will I take a shot at a deer? I like my deer to be 35 plus or 35 or closer. That's my comfort zone, right? I'm comfortable at 35 yards. I think my bow is fast enough that if I can see how that deer is standing, if he's calm enough, I think I can make that shot without him moving. I have 50 yards. I don't know. I mean, there's too much that can go wrong at 50 yards. I mean, I see people do it all the time and they're successful, and I mean, good for them. It's just, that's not my comfort level. So I why I do it.
For sure. Have you seen or heard or anything about EHD or CWD this year at all?
As for like predictions?
Or
no, I mean, I didn't see anything this year. Usually it's in the fall. Last year it seemed to hit pretty early in our area. We lost a lot more deer in our area than I thought we did. They were finding. I treat my water sources, so I found 2 deer on my property, but they were like right on the board, right on the line. So I don't think the issue came from my property. I think it came from adjoining properties with the swamps on it that I can't treat. But they were out shed hunting this year, my son-in-law and his brothers, and they shed hunt right around here. And I think they said they found 20 deer that they didn't find last fall. And I mean, they even found one that was floating in the lake. They said it must have been frozen in the ice. And a lot of them are 2.5-year-old deer. And they're real obvious that they're EHD deer because the skeleton's still intact. It's still there. A deer that dies from natural causes or the critters will spread them apart. They'll take, there'll be pieces of it everywhere, but nothing will eat an EHD deer. So it just lays there and melts into the ground. And, maybe eventually they'll start pulling the bones apart. But so if you find a full skeleton like that hasn't been drug around, more than likely it was an EHD deer. And they said they found 20 more this spring. That river bottom I talked about earlier, it was over in that area. And they had found like 30 some in the fall. So it was a little harder than I was hoping and what I thought here in this area. But it seems to be so hit and miss, right? I mean, it's Battle Creek 2 years ago got devastated. In Battle Creek, Kalamazoo, man, they were pushing deer off the roads down there in some places. They were dying so bad. Last year they had some, but not much. So it's so weird how it just picks a geographic that it does. And it's not like every year this one area just gets devastated, right? I mean, and it's not like that. It's like it's moving. Which doesn't.
I've thought about that too, like the Lansing area per se. It seems like it hits up there, but not down by us. It's just like you said. It's weird how it goes in sections.
Put your tin hat on, Kyle. Get into some conspiracy theories. I've heard them all. It feels like what I have. My brother-in-law was like, "Yeah, I saw the DNR plane flying over and spraying something down, and then all of a sudden, all my deer died." It's like they got to be getting the diseases out here. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't think they're doing that, but I guess we don't know. But
I'm all part of the conspiracy theories of things. I just kind of like hearing the stories of it all, I guess, but I don't get too caught up into it. But I don't think that the way that the DNR and the way that they're paying the DNR officers nowadays and tags are going up, I don't think they have the funds to be dropping these tick boxes off and all these other diseases that people are saying that they're doing. I don't think they have any of that going on. I guess you never know. So you don't know until you know.
Yeah.
The insurance company has all that money.
Yeah. Well, they have the money. That's for sure. Next, I got two questions, and then we'll wrap it up because I think it's getting towards Brad's bedtime, and I don't want Rachel yelling at me after. But the thing that I hear a lot nowadays is the baiting and how it's not getting passed. People don't want it to pass. The CWD with the baiting is. What is your opinion on the baiting aspect?
I don't care one way or another if they bring back baiting. They want to worry about nose-to-nose contact. I sat in my tree stand last year and watched 2.5-year-old bucks groom each other for 15 minutes in the face, nose to nose. You're never going to get rid of that. What are they going to do? Not let us use licking ropes next? I mean, what's the difference, right? I mean, you're putting up a rope to attract deer, multiple deer. They're going to lick it. They're going to rub their nose on it. But yet you can't take a pile of apples out from underneath the tree and put them somewhere else without it being illegal because you're going to contract, CWD or whatever. I don't think they have the science to back what they're doing, for not having bait. I agree with limiting the bait, 2.5 gallons or whatever. Sure. I mean, I think that's good. I've had people ask me about, what is that going to do for you? How's that going to impact you? It won't impact me whatsoever just because there's so many people out there into the food plot game, that want to do it right, that they know that putting down a pile of sugar beets isn't going to keep the health of that deer herd there throughout the entire season, which is how you're going to grow your big deer and your bucks, right? A pile of corn isn't going to grow you a big deer next year by having 200 pounds on the ground all fall long. Actually, corn, I wish people would know more that too much corn in the wrong time of the season kills them. The deer get toxic in their stomachs. They look healthy. They walk out in the woods. They lay down and never get up. It happens a lot more than people know. So, I mean, I think what they're basing outlawing baiting on, I think is kind of crap, just because the deer are face to face always.
I think they're trying to cover themselves, and since they blamed it on CWD, I think they're trying to cover up on how not to look stupid with bringing it back if they do bring it back, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's egg in their face, right? Oh, so you're saying you're wrong now.
Yeah, right.
We couldn't bait all these years. Yeah, you're 100% right on that, I think. That's egg in their face they don't want. So we'll see. I don't have any great hopes for them doing anything. It seems like they're so wishy-washy on all these subjects, right? Like everyone was saying they could have made all them changes this year in 2026 instead of 2027. My opinion is the reason they're pushing some of them changes out to 2027 is because they're going to change them. It gives them a full year to go, yeah, change my mind.
Yeah,
this
we
politician
thought
gave me
about
more
it.
money.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion. It could be 100%
I mean, that's kind of
wrong.
how I think about the earn a buck in the lower part of Michigan, right? Or in like they're doing in the certain counties, right? The earn a buck. It's like,
yeah,
what's the point? Because we're trying to do this one buck thing. Okay, so now one part of the state has $1. The UP has $2. Now there's 20 counties in the lower part of Michigan. They have $2. So what's going to stop people in the middle area to go to the UP or to go down to the lower part and hunt one of these earn a bucks counties? It's defeating the purpose,
It's the insurance company.
Yeah, and they're not.
What's that?
They're not going to monitor the doe, right? So you get to your ghost doe. I mean, all you got to do is call in and say, shot doe. Okay, go get a buck tag.
Yep.
That is like they're complicating so much. Not even. I don't even think that they know how they're going to do it, and it's just going to make everything worse, in my opinion. The $1, fine, I'm cool with it. Not a problem at all. I like it. You're trying to get, whether they say it's for the herd or whatever it may be, it's for the money and the out-of-state hunters that are coming up. That's what they're looking at, in my opinion. And that's fine if you want to go that route and people disagree. I mean, you might lose people, but if the true hunters are going to hunt, then you're not going to lose any of those. I mean, you're going to hunt no matter what. And I don't know. I think they're trying to make everybody happy, and it's just to make it even worse for everything.
Man, I was in management for years. You're never going to make 100% of the people happy 100% of the time. You got to pick your battles, man. I mean, 100%. That's all there is to
100%. And that was kind of my next question, just how you thought about the new rules and regulations that came about.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like the $1 rule, so I'm Barry County. So if they keep everything the way it is, I'm going to be in that earn a buck. But it's weird because they have like two different things they're calling it. They're calling one a trial, or it's like they've got two different colors for these areas and they're comparing them to one another. But I don't know why they're calling them different names in those areas. It didn't make sense to me. They didn't explain that in the rules very good at all. But I mean, I don't need to shoot 2 deer or 2 bucks. I'm all about shooting doe anyway. I mean, I just want the freezer meat. And if we have such great potential down here in Barry County, having all the ag and, there's a lot of swamps and so much creeks and rivers and bodies of water, I mean, there's so much potential for Michigan to have them big bucks. But, I was listening to a podcast and this one guy said he's hunted all over the country. And he said he shoots big bucks in like Iowa, and it's a 5.5, 6-year-old deer. And he says it's never been wounded. He says he goes to Michigan, and if he can get a 4-year-old deer, it's got 3 wounds on it from previous years. He says he's never shot an old deer in Michigan that hadn't previously been shot at least 2 or 3 times. Why is that? It's because you get that, in my opinion, it's because you get that mulligan buck. You're not making that shot count because you can get another one. I mean, and maybe I'm wrong, but it's a whole mental game with that when it comes down to that. It's like, well, I'll just shoot this one because now I'll wait for a bigger one. And they take it.
It's crazy how many times on Facebook you see that post, right? It's like, not my biggest buck, but I got one in the freezer now. Now it's time to chase that monster one. Now it's like, what? Why shoot that one? Like, why? Yeah. It's because you're just chasing the antlers. Like, that's the big people like, don't take my 2 bucks higher. And it's like, shoot a doe. Like, it's more meat potentially than a 1.5-year-old buck. Like, shoot a 2-3-year-old doe.
Well, I think
shoot the little spike horn.
It goes back to like the 100-yard shot with a crossbow or whatever it may be. They don't care that much if it wounds that deer, just because if they can't find it, well, they still got the 2 tags, and there's a lot to really break down, and I don't think anybody will ever really truly figure it out. But if they just keep it simple, it is the best route of going, in my opinion.
I wish they would bring muzzleloader back. I
love muzzleloading season. It was so much fun.
Man,
so much fun.
I loved using the smoke pole. It's a great time of year. Second rut in my area is usually kicking in right at that time. It makes you concentrate, right? The muzzleloader made you make that shot count. I think they should make a muzzleloader or a gun that everyone has to use all gun season long. There you go. You get 1 shot. Yeah, and, make it count. That would change people's outlook on things a lot, I think. Some of them, I mean, some people are ethical anyway, but a lot of these guys are out there with their semi-autos and stuff. You give them one shot, they're going to pay attention to what they're doing a little more, I think. But it'll never happen. Now we just got extended gun season.
Depends on our hospital or whatever it may be. But I don't know. There's a lot of change, a lot of stuff going on. All in all, Ridge, I appreciate you coming on, spending the time. Sorry for keeping you this long. Man. I mean, I feel like we can keep on going on and on about just the new rules, regulations, and just I have so many questions myself about food plots. So I mean, expect a text from me within the next couple of days. And I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule and jumping on with us.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate you guys getting a hold of me and asking me. I enjoy doing this thing. Like you say, I could sit here and talk hunting and fishing and rules and everything for hours and hours and hours. So.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, where can people find you at? Where can they get a hold of you? Where can they ask you a bunch of questions and pull up your phone and all that good stuff?
Yeah, man. I mean, Rich at killerfoodplots.com. That's my email. That's the easiest way. My phone, 616-215-2052. When I'm on a tractor, I usually will let it go to voicemail. If I shut my phone off every time it rang, I'd probably put a starter on my tractor once a week. So I usually let the voicemail build up and I try to get back people as soon as I can, either when I'm on lunch break or get done for the day. So, and our website, killerfoodplots.com, man, all our products are on there. Bunch of cool videos on there. Anybody got questions, give me a call. I get a lot of phone calls, a lot of people just calling, hey, bought your seed, I was just wondering. And that's cool. I mean, it keeps me busy, but that's cool. I appreciate people reaching out, Customer service is lacking in a lot of areas around the world anymore, So I like to try and be that guy and do it as best I can, help out people as much as I can. So
that's awesome. Well, again, I appreciate it a ton you jumping on, man, and it was good to catch up with you. And if everybody listening hasn't tuned into the first one, make sure they do. We kind of break down more on, I don't know, just the startup of Rich and Killer Food Plot and how we got acquainted with the previous owner, how we got it all started and everything. So make sure you tune into that one. And I guess we'll see everybody next week on the next podcast.